Welcome Ukraine news today. After months of fighting, Russia's defense ministry says its forces captured the eastern Ukrainian town of Soledar, a claim that Ukrainian military officials denied and that prompted bitter infighting with a pro-Kremlin mercenary group involved in the offensive. If taken, the salt mining town would be a rare recent military victory for Russia in the war in Ukraine, now in its 11th month. In a press briefing, Russian Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Konashenkov said Russian forces had liberated Soledar overnight, and insisted the victory carried important significance for Russia's push to capture the wider Donetsk region. A spokesperson for the Ukrainian military, Serhiy Cherevity, scoffed at that assessment, saying that Russia's statements do not correspond to reality. Battles are going on in Soledar. Indeed, amid days of intense fighting, there have been conflicting statements on who controlled Soledar, even amongst the Russian side. Yevgeny Prigozhin, the founder of the Russian mercenary force the Wagner Group, claimed his fighters had single-handedly seized the town as early as Tuesday. Yet, in its initial statement claiming victory, Russia's defense ministry notably made no mention of Wagner contributions, the latest sign of political infighting between Prigozhin and the ministry's top brass that has escalated in recent months. The capture of Soledar was possible thanks to the constant firepower against our opponent by the ground and air forces, as well as rocket and artillery groups of the Russian armed forces, said the ministry spokesman Konashenkov. They constantly launched targeted strikes on Ukrainian positions in the city, preventing Ukraine from sending in reserves and munitions, as well as attempts to withdraw to other areas of defense, added Konashenkov. The statement prompted an angry outburst by Prigozhin and leading nationalist bloggers, who accused the defense ministry of trying to usurp Wagner's victory. The ministry later issued a separate statement to its social media account crediting the courageous and selfless action in seizing portions of Soledar. Russia's capture of Soledar is and isn't significant, explains Carolina Hurd, a Russia analyst at the Institute for the Study of War. Russian forces, throughout the course of this war, have struggled to make operationally significant gains to such a degree that when they do start making these tactical, small-scale block-by-block advances, those stand out. Control of Soledar could allow Russia to cut off Ukrainian supply lines to nearby Bakhmut, another fiercely contested city seen as central to Russia's struggling efforts to control eastern Ukraine. While reaching Bakhmut may be Russia's goal, military experts say the fall of Soledar doesn't guarantee Bakhmut will be encircled and doesn't signify a huge turning point for the Russian military. And the question remains whether minor tactical advances are worth the cost. The Ukrainians have very successfully pinned Russian forces up against Soledar and Bakhmut for 6 months, says Hurd, and used this to basically just continue pulling Russian troops, Russian equipment, to this area and basically burning through it. While not an important military target, Bakhmut is connected to several highway systems, a critical ground line of communication and transportation for the Ukrainian forces. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky recently visited Bakhmut, just before his trip to Washington and speech to the U.S. Congress, where he presented representatives with a battle-torn Ukrainian flag signed by forces there. Hold Bakhmut has become a rallying cry across Ukraine. In his nightly address Monday, Zelensky said that the fighting in the area has bought Ukraine additional time and military power. Bakhmut is more about politics rather than war, says Oleh Janov, a Ukrainian military expert. From the military perspective, Bakhmut doesn't have operational or strategic significance. But the Russian Federation can turn this into an enormous wave of propaganda. Russia claimed Friday to have completed its capture of the town Soledar in eastern Ukraine Friday after months of fighting in a brutal offensive that would hand the Kremlin its first significant battlefield gain since July after a wave of military setbacks. Ukraine insists that the fighting was far from over. Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar described the phase of the war as being difficult, but the conflict in Soledar is hot, she wrote Friday on Telegram. The enemy threw almost all the main forces in the direction of Donetsk and has maintained a high intensity of the offensive, she said. Our fighters are bravely trying to hold the defense. The battle for Soledar, a small salt mining town, has emerged as a critical step in Moscow's goal of encircling the key city of Bakhmut, a transportation hub under assault since August, and ultimately capturing the entire Donbass region. The fighting has intensified in recent weeks as the one-year anniversary of Russia's unprovoked February 24 invasion approaches, with Russia pummeling Soledar at the expense of steep losses to its own forces. Amid competing claims over control of the city, images geolocated by the Institute for the Study of War, a Washington-based military research group, show Russian forces likely hold most, if not all, of Soledar, while pushing Ukrainian forces to the west. Officials from both sides have referred to the battle as a meat grinder, with streets strewn with corpses of soldiers. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said earlier this week there was almost no life in Soledar and no whole walls left on any building in the mining town. This is what madness looks like, he said in a nightly video address on Monday. The Russian Defense Ministry said Friday on its Telegram channel that the private military company Wagner Group was responsible for leading the direct assault. It was a rare nod to Wagner, which is financed by Yevgeny Prigozhin, the Russian oligarch sometimes called Putin's chef, because he rose to power after running a catering company favored by the Kremlin. Putin's shadow army is estimated to have thousands of members, including former convicts, and has acted as a mercenary force fighting on behalf of Russia in a way that allows Moscow a measure of deniability. The Wagner Group first appeared in 2014 during Russia's annexation of Crimea. Capturing Soledar would be critical for Russia's war aims but also Prigozhin, who has repeatedly criticized Russia's defense ministry and its management of the Ukraine war. His group has deployed to other hotspots around the world, including Libya, Sudan, the Central African Republic, Madagascar, Mozambique, Mali, and Syria, where Wagner mercenaries fought a bloody battle with U.S. Special Forces in 2018. But achieving victory in Soledar will be a personal victory for Prigozhin, who feels his forces deserve more credit. He may also aspire to take control of the town's salt and gypsum mines for personal enrichment. White House National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said, "There's a bit of an economic incentive for Russia to take Soledar, but any victory would be more symbolic than substantive. Even if both Bakhmut and Soledar fall to the Russians, it's not going to have a strategic impact on the war itself," Kirby told reporters Thursday at the White House.